right, welcome to the 40th anniversary of the Tire Rack Solo Nationals. This is an Evolution seminar. This time we're going virtual, folks. We're on the West Course. Place your bets. Karen and Babb put together a great course for us. We got Andy Hollis from STF and a Mazda 2, and Kevin Dietz from STR driving an S2000 to show us the way. Let's see what they got to say. All right, Kevin, here we are in the first section here, come out and roll. And what do you think the key elements here?
I think one of the things you're gonna have to make sure you don't do, Junior, is not hit this first cone right here. The lights aren't so way down there. No reason to be on top of that cone, but I think a lot of people are gonna be all amped up, ready to go, and just potentially run right over that cone.
Right out of the box, throwing away their run.
Ruin your whole day right out of the gate.
All right, Andy, what do you think some of the other key elements of this segment are?
I agree with Kevin completely on that with the start. The other thing that adrenaline will tend to make you do is drive too fast in this first 180. It's downhill off camber. There's going to be a tendency for the car to roll down the hill a little too fast. The key on this turn really is the exit, not the entry.
You're focusing on cone 124, 135, and making sure that you're as close to those as possible, especially 135. Really want to be on the backside of that cone. After leaving come out and roll, I think it's really important. You've got a little section there where you're going fairly straight. That's important. You look over at cone 200 and make sure that you don't overbrake this section right here. I think the tendency is for folks to probably overbrake that and then come into shallow here, which will cause this to be 3 corners instead of 1 arcing turn to get on the backside of Let It Ride as we go down into that straightaway.
I agree completely with what Kevin's saying. This is a lot like phase 1 where we've got the big sweeping turns. You've got to get your eyes all the way across the 180 so you can see how big it is. And then you can get back to the throttle in the middle of the turn as soon as your hands start unwinding. And then you can move way left as you enter into Let It Ride.
We're about midway through Let It Ride here, and we're going to make sure we stay to the left on the entry here, and you're going to want to drive the car right out to cone 216, really give it a good scare, turn up, looking for cone 227 and 228, and make sure that we're, again, continuing that arc all the way around and keep your foot on it all the way up into Let It Ride.
Yeah, as Kevin says, you can make, if you set this thing up right, you can make one big continuous arc. You want to make sure that the arc that you're coming into it is the same as the one that you're coming out so that you can maximize speed coming down that next straightaway.
So here's where we're going to enter double down. It's a fairly straightforward element. I think the focus here is going to get on the back side of the second pointer in each one of these elements, and I think definitely look out for that last pairing, as I think you're going to carry a little momentum in there, and if you're not looking at the right cone, the potential there is you're going to blow the entry of that big sweeping turn after it.
Got to agree with what Kevin's saying. There's a lot of cones out here, but there's really only 3 or 4 that really matter. But I'm going to add one more to that. That's cone 238 right over here. That's your setup, and in fact, if you look at it, it kind of feeds you right in. If you're not out by this wall coming into this, you're already late before you even get there. So cone 238.
Now from here, we're going to enter into turn 3. Again, you want to make sure that you don't overdrive the entry here. And I think one of the critical things here is you're going to want to make this 1 arcing turn. And to do that, you're going to really need to drive it right out to the line, the chalk line, then coming back. And we're going to be looking for a cone 324 to get on the back side of that. It's going to be key that you don't come in here and make a turn, then make another turn, make a third turn. You're really going to want to try to do this 1 arcing turn like our phase 2 program, where we had you start out and we had you make that first left-hand turn through the middle, and we forced you just to use the throttle and less steering input to make that a nice smooth arc.
Agree with what Kevin's saying. One thing you're going to have to be careful for, especially those folks who are driving on Thursday, Friday, is typically what happens, especially with this kind of a turn on this side, is that the line that people are taking tends to come in a lot. So you may be somewhat restricted in your ability to get out by that chalk line. There may be too much debris out there, but the key being that you make a bit of a decreasing radius as you go through the turn and get that exit right. Do whatever you can to get that exit right. Do what you have to do here, get the exit right.
All right, so we've left turn 3, and now we're moving into flop, turn, and river. I think it's really important that you focus on that 335 and getting on the back side of that cone as you enter these half moons. And I think the half moons are a little tricky. I think some people are going to look at the end cone. Some people I think are going to look at the last 3 cones, some at the middle. But I think the key is to not overdrive that first half moon and making sure that you have good position on the second one so you can actually get back to the throttle down into the corner.
Agree with Kevin. It's all about position through there, and it's also about position coming in here. Remember, cone 324, you got to do whatever it takes to get on the back side of that. Otherwise, you'll never get position on this flop, turn, and roll.
All right, so we're entering the 5-cone draw here, and I think one of the things you need to key on is the last cone of each one of these walls as your focal point as you come through it. It's going to be visually tough to see through all of those cones to pick out that last cone on the wall, but it's going to be imperative that that's where you look. And I think another thing to keep in mind here is not too big of inputs in your steering wheel, and to keep the car as stable as possible because it'll be fairly high speed. And if you get too much steering input in, you may start a big wag going into one of the most crucial corners of the entire course.
Adding to that, while it looks like there's only 3 walls here, we're only focused on that last cone in each, and there's actually a 4th single cone that acts as if it's a wall cone. That's back there at cone 413. That is really the end of your first wall. So you gotta really be on the back side of that in order to attack the rest of this section.
I think now we're entering into 6 the easy way. I think one of the critical elements to this part of the course is that you don't get suckered in on cone 512. I think that if you turn in too early on that, you're going to really have a hard time getting into that 6 the easy way, that first cone in the slalom, which we know from phase 1 is the most important cone of that entire slalom. And this slalom is increasing radius, so the first 2 gates in the slalom are very tight. It's going to be very important that you don't dive in early. And in fact, in my opinion, you're going to want to go straighter and get a nice straight brake zone and then turn in. And if you need a visual key, the last cone of the wall there, which would be cone number 522, is kind of your visual cue to get out to that cone to get a good entry into that slalom.
Exactly. This is where it all happens. Your run either survives or doesn't right here. Adding to the challenge is the fact that this is downhill off camber. I like to think of this as playing chicken with a clip. Do you really go right out to the edge and try to get every last little inch out of it, or do you be slightly conservative so that you can get yourself right up on the backside of that first slalom cone? That's my approach, is take it a little bit easy on entry so that you can really hammer all the way through the exit, all the way to the finish line and collect your winning time.
Yeah, this is definitely the most important corner of the entire course. If you're going to do anything right on this whole course, this is the corner you got to nail. And I think it's important by cone 600, if you've been patient in the first couple cones, and remember it's increasing, the first 2 are tighter, that by cone 600 your foot should be going back to throttle. That's where you're going to cash in your chips and make the big money and hit the home run here through the lights.
Exactly. If for some reason though you have some trouble after the finish line, the cones through there and that finish chute are fairly well spaced out. So if you have some trouble, try to avoid those cones. And if you go outside the chute, remember it's still within the rules to just re-enter where you went out and proceed on down. The timer has already stopped. It's all good.
All right, the key to success on this course will be keeping our car cone right, if you will, course right at the start. Don't line yourself to the left. Get yourself nice and open so you don't hit cone 102 right off the start. That's the most important thing. Don't ruin your day before you even cross the start light. Once you get the car aimed down that first straightaway, move yourself towards the left and start looking for cone 124 and 135. The key element here is to be right on the back of 135, which helps set up that little straightaway we have heading out of come out roll and into the beginning portion of let it ride. You don't need to be too tight on the back of 144. You can carry some good speed into that section there and make a nice big arc, getting yourself behind cone 200. That's a really important fast section there. It's a lot of phase 1 information once again, so keep that in mind. Move yourself behind 200, a little course left so you don't pinch yourself on cone 215. And then we're going to let the car work its way out in a nice arc out towards 216 on the outside so you can get on the back of cone 227. Again, this is all through that Let It Ride section. It's a big area, a lot of distance covered, but it's a really nice set of S's, if you will. Nice arcs, nice smooth inputs, carrying as much momentum and speed as you can. As you head up out of the 227 area, heading out of the last portion of Let It Ride and towards the beginning of Double Down, you want to maximize your straightaway speed, but the key is to find the end of the wall at the end of the straightaway there, and look for cone 238. That's really the beginning of a slalom almost, if you will. You find 238, get on the back side of that, and that'll set up the Double Down area perfectly. You want to find 241 really early, then the back of 300, all looking for then 305, which sets up what we were calling corner 3, which is the end of Double Down, and kind of a no-named area of the course, if you will. But corner 3 there, another big arc. There's a lot of sucker cones in there. Keep the eyeballs, though, looking for cone 324. This corner really reminds me like an exit ramp on a highway. You're just looking around the corner, waiting for it to tighten up. And it just, at the very end of that, the decreasing radius allows you to get right into 324, which sets up flop, turn, and river. Once you're on the back of 324, your eyeballs need to come up course, find cone 335 as early as possible so that you can get on the back of the curved walls, if you will. You're looking for, again, we talked whether it's the third cone from the end or the last cone, whatever it is, those last 3 cones of each of those curved walls are the keys, which is cone 346 area, and then start to look for 406. There's a lot of speed that can be had there, so you can take some good power down into the corner, which is the beginning of the 5 cone draw. As you head down into that corner, very vital to find cone 413. While we have a Slalom section, 413 is a gate, if you will, all by its lonesome, but that is really like the end of the first wall, the imaginary 4th wall. You get on the back of 413, it's much easier than to get on the back of 419, and then 504, as well as 509. If you nail those first 2 sections and you keep nice, tight, and tidy, you'll carry great momentum down into the corner. But remember, we need to brake straight, brake early, because that's off camber and the most important corner on this course, because you can lose a lot of time there. And if you don't set the slalom, the 6 the easy way, it's going to be really hard. The key there, once you get it slowed down, let the car get out by 522 and get a good angle in the back of 523. Remember, this slalom at the end, it increases in paces as you go. The first 2 are equally paced, and then they start to increase by 2 paces. So you can carry some good speed, but you're not going to be able to do it if you overdrive the entry. Backside those first 3 cones in that slalom, and you can really squeeze on the loud pedal and really put some power down to the finish. The big key there is keep your eyes towards the end of the slalom once you get your rhythm, and start looking for that finish early. And remember, things get bad in the finish. There's a lot of open area there. If you have a problem, make sure you keep it clean, and if for some reason you go off, you come back in where you went off and move yourself back out of the way as someone's coming another 20 seconds behind you. It's time to cash them in and get those jackets.